Welcome to this slide. Here we'll be talking about selecting elements in DOM. Below are the few methods DOM elements can be selected in JavaScript. Get element by ID. Say for instance, we have a div element in our index.html file with an attribute of ID and a value of root. Then with a text that says this is a simple div element with an ID value of root. To select this in JavaScript, we need to tackle on the document, which is the general node for all the elements in our HTML file. Now append this method called getElementById and pass the value of the ID attribute, which is root. Now notice how we are using the camel case method, where we have E, B, and I to be in capital letter. Say for instance you'd like to update the text content from this is a simple div element with an ID value of root to something new. To do that, we just need to change the inner HTML to the particular variable we assigned the element we got, and by updating it with this new value that states updating the content of the div with this gets to update the content for us. The next approach is the get elements by name. Notice the S in the plural. Now we are having a paragraph tag where we'll be able to put our input fields. One, we have an input with a type of radio, the name of rate, the value of very poor with an output here of very poor. Then we'll have another input with a type of radio button, a name of rate, and a value of poor with just a value of poor. Now by getting this using get elements by name, we are going to have an array of values. That is why it's the plural S, because it's going to grab every element that has a tag name of rate, and with this we'll grab all the elements that passes this particular criteria and return them into these rates. Another example is using get elements by tag name. Now we are having an example of a paragraph that states this is the first paragraph, another heading that states that a variable with a variable heading that has a document.getElement by tag name P. Essentially this grabs every tag name or element in our HTML file. Anywhere we have paragraph, it grabs it and it saves it inside of this variable called heading. The next option we have, which is like the universal option, is the query selector. The query selector starts off with having a div with an ID of root and a text content. To select this particular div using query selector, we'll still tackle on the document.querySelector. Now because we are using query selector and we are trying to select an element that has an ID attribute, we need to pass this hash or pound symbol before the value of that attribute. But mind you, when we had the get element by ID, we didn't have any need of providing the hash because we are targeting just the ID. For instance, again, say you want to select the tag name paragraph, all you need to do is to pass the tag name just like that. In our next slide, we'll get to talk about event handling in JavaScript.